There's so many different factions of spiritual beings from other dimensions, and it's elaborate. You have these cities of spirits, you have darker things of spiritual slave trade, kind of like how we have human trafficking. There's the same thing in the spiritual world too. There's some places in this world that you are even cut off from God and the Creator, to where even the angels and those guys can't hear your prayers.
Over the past few years, skinwalkers have become a hot topic in the paranormal world and also across social media platforms like TikTok. I know you've seen skinwalker videos. They reportedly show a mythical creature pretending to be a human, attempting to lure unsuspecting victims out so it can hurt or possibly kill them. Well, in Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. The term skinwalker is never used for healers, and it's actually frowned upon to even say the word out loud. While we were in Arizona shooting our new series of paranormal investigations, I knew I had to call my friend Shan Klen, who has actually had physical skinwalker encounters himself. The stories that he's about to tell you are guaranteed to blow your mind, as he discusses times he's found skinwalker relics, he's hunted skinwalkers with others, and even recalls the time a skinwalker tried to kill him. Like I said before, some of these stories get really dark, twisted, and disturbing. You're going to learn a lot, and you might sleep a little lighter tonight. You're watching The Paranormal Files.
I think so. All right.
That's good.
Let me get a little closer so I can pick you up better.
Oh. Yacht, hello, my name is Sean Klen. I'm a Shihinishla, but do Bilagana Bashichin, Kashe, Ada Shiche, Ado Bilagana, Ada Shanella. So I introduced my clans, that's where I come from. I'm Navajo, I'm Diné from the Navajo Nation, so I come from up north of where these mountains are here and everything. So I was asked to come do an interview here to kind of shed some light on some of the darker beings that hail from our lands up north, as well as maybe have trickled down to the beings here, or the tribes that are down here more to the south, the Apaches as well. So the stories and lore go back of the skinwalker. The Yanagloshi is its true name. Throughout the years, Yanagloshi comes out to the terms in English of jumping the skins. So these are essentially, a long time ago, they were medicinal people that used to go to sacred mountains, just like this one that's behind me here. In our Navajo Nation, they needed to travel to the 4 sacred mountains really quickly. So to be able to perform a bundle ceremony, which is a sacred ceremony that's used to be able to make these bundles that provide protection for certain family members as well as the tribe and kind of the clan itself. Now, for this ceremony to work, they needed to traverse the land in 4 days. So they needed a quick way. This was before vehicles, helicopters, or anything like that was available. So the spirit people taught them how to shapeshift, how to jump in the skins. Now, it was used for good back in the day, but with goodness always is followed by evil. So goodness and evil both come hand in hand. When it comes to that, you know, they're throughout time, you know, it's a very, very long process to be able to learn how to shapeshift. It takes years, decades to be able to learn how to shapeshift in the good way, to be able to call upon the songs, call upon the spirits, and to be able to shapeshift into, whether it be a coyote, whether it be a deer or a cougar or any other animals that were readily available up there in the tribes. But evil kind of came along to some of the weaker minded medicinal people in training and told them, it's like, okay, I could teach you how to do this in a quicker way. So they told them, you can learn how to do this in a very cut decades out of your training and be able to learn how to do it quickly. It came at a cost, unfortunately. To be able to become a skinwalker in the evil way, there's a lot of steps you have to go through, but one of the major ones you have to go through is the sacrificing of one of your loved ones. Once you sacrifice one of your loved ones, it could be your newborn child, your wife, your mother, your grandfather, your sibling, anything like that, one you find dearest, closest to your heart. Now, once you do that, you have to do a lot of stuff with the body. You have to do a lot of ceremonies with it too, to be able to, you know, go really down to make your contract and, in a sense, deal with the devil kind of thing. When it comes down to that, then you also have to get your skin. You have to go and really do a lot of evil things. I guess you can say how they do it in the good way. You have to do it backwards and do a lot of crazy things with it. So when it comes to that stuff, you know, there's a lot of stories that go beyond that. So back in the day, it was also used for wartime too. We used to use it against the Utes, we used to use it against Apaches, we used to use it against the cavalry a long time ago. But as kind of time went on, you know, a lot of the good medicinal people started passing away. That's where the wars of medicinal people kind of started happening. You know, that's where a lot of the good medicine men were starting to get killed off by evil medicinal people as well. So that's where you kind of started to see a lot more of the evil skinwalkers kind of taking more of a foothold in the Navajo Nation. Toward modern day, there's definitely not as many, but I can definitely tell you, all you viewers out there who are from the Navajo Nation probably have a story of you living out in a rural area. Nearest neighbors like 2-3 miles away, you're living in your hogan, no running water or electricity. Middle of the night you hear something walking on your roof. You hear scratching and all that on your door. So there's a lot of those stories that in modern day kind of run around and all that. So you'll be running around, you'll be driving on the reservation and you see these dark things, you hear their dog whistles, you hear them coming around. So that's one of the things, is it's very and there's a coyote right there as I'm talking about this. So, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, even kind of us talking about this, whenever they say in our tribe it's taboo to talk about them. But when you talk about them, it's, in a sense, you're making a line of communication. In a sense, you're praying to them. Without you kind of knowing, you're opening up that line of communication. That's how they know. They perk up their ears and they hear you like that. They hear you kind of coming around and doing this stuff. So then they'll come to your house. They can witch you. They can kill you. They have this, they're also called grave robbers as well. So they go to a lot of these cemeteries. They go to some family members. They dig them up. They get their bones, whether that be skin or decay, whatever state the body is in. And then they'll grind up the bones. They'll use bone knives, bone darts, or bone ash. They call it washte. And then they have the ability to paralyze you as well. So when it comes to that, you know, you be sleeping in the middle of the night, they'll paralyze you, then they'll put that bone ash on you. And they say if you don't get a ceremony soon, you're going to die of a curse like that. To be able to inhale a human body like that, it's going to get you sick and kill you. So that's one of the things, is like going to war, going to bat with these guys. You know, you always have to say, you don't talk about these guys, but there's always the second part to that, is unless you know how to deal with them. So that's why, like me, myself, and my brother, and then a few other warriors from our tribe, we know how to go against these beings. We know how to protect ourselves. We know the songs and ceremonies to go against the evil prayers, the songs, the curses that they put upon us. So that's why we're able to kind of talk about these beings and everything. Like I said, there's a possibility, mainly they'll be in the Navajo Nation, but there are some who have, I guess you can say, are relatives or married into other tribes, such as this land down here in the Apache lands. So I'm sure the Apaches have their shapeshifters as well. You know, that's why down here, you know, it's not too far away from the Navajo Nation to where there's a possibility of skinwalkers being out here. So that's one thing. You always got to be on your guard wherever you go, and always leave offering, and just be careful not to leave anything behind. You know, they say if you leave your hair, if you leave anything else that's around you, they can gather those objects and they can curse you and witch you after you leave. So that's kind of one of those things. It's like, you know, you would see like a lot of these social media things talk about skinwalkers being all the way in the East Coast, and it's just like, not really. Kind of don't really think it would be a skinwalker. Yeah, there's shapeshifters all over the place, but a skinwalker is a very specific type of shapeshifter. Each tribe, each race and nationality have their shapeshifters and everything. So I encourage you all, wherever you are, you look up whatever religion or race or tribe is in your area. Ask them. You know, I'm pretty sure they have their names. They have their stories and their origins of where those shapeshifters come from. But that's kind of not so long, or not so short, but rundown of what Yanagloshis are.
So, have you had experiences with them?
Oh yeah. It's kind of weird to say. I don't know if you guys are kind of like spiritually sensitive to things, but normally when the stories go, when that sun goes down like this is when the spirits start to wake up and everything. So that's why you heard the coyote. And then I don't know, I heard like I had like a little tinnitus. So whenever you have like tinnitus like that, they say that's when spirits are kind of talking with you and everything like that. So
Yeah, dude, that happens all the time in our videos.
Yeah.
Where you say, oh my God, my ear's ringing, and then something will happen right then.
My brother is a medicinal person in our tribe, and he kind of deals with the more darker side of beings, and whether that be, you know, skinwalkers, demons, if you say it in English, kind of darker beings like that. So we used to go to homesteads whenever people would be having these beings kind of affect the family in that way. So we were called out to actually one of our relatives' homestead in northern Arizona, near Page, Arizona. And they told us in this place there was a shack that belonged to one of their grandfathers that passed away. And they always kind of felt something weird about that shack. And they tried asking other medicinal people, hey, can you come and, you know, do a ceremony or prayer to kind of chill out the energies are in there. But for some reason, all the medicinal people would turn them away. They would say, no, that's too dark, that's too evil, I'm not going to go in there. So they called upon us, and we went to go check it out. And this was at the very, I'd had to have been like 14, maybe 16 years old when I was going out with my brother at that age. And this one was really creepy because this was one of my first times. My brother told me, he's like, there's possible skinwalkers, Yanagloshis out there. So I would always hear stories. You know, we kind of trained to be able to go against these beings. And so it's like, okay, this is, you know, this might be the real deal, so be ready. So, okay. So we show up at the house, and the sun was setting just like how it is right now. And we do like a little bit of scouting recon, and we check out the house and everything. We're just like, okay, we're going to start the ceremony when the sun goes down. So we don on our gear, we don on our protections, we do like a little protection ceremony whenever we go against these darker beings. So when that happened, the sun went down, we prepared to go over to the shack and everything. So, but while we were making our way over to the shack, it was very eerie because it was dark, but there was no moon and there was no stars on a clear day. And living out in the reservation, you know, you always see the Milky Way at night. And it was very eerie because there was just an ominous feeling of darkness surrounding you. So that's what my brother said, you know, it's just, this is one of those things to be able to bring fear inside of you. That's what these evil beings feed off of, is that fear. So always stay strong with your prayer and who you are as a person. So I said, okay. So we make our way over to the shed, or the little shack that was there. He told me to wait outside because I wasn't properly trained to deal with cursed objects at the time. I wasn't able to handle them and how they, if they were to jump on me and affect me in that way. So he told me to wait outside. And how they described it, how they told me, is when they opened that door, they saw 3 chests stacked up, like a luggage chest. If you can imagine, like early 1900s, kind of 50s leather chests that had like brass fittings on the sides and everything. So they looked in there, and that's all that was inside of it. So the first chest that they opened up, you know, was just some normal clothes, everything like that. And when they put that chest to the side, my brother told me he felt some real dark energy in the next 2. So he looked at me outside the doorway, and what was very creepy about it was because there was no electricity out there. So we parked our vehicles to face the shack. We turned on our headlights, and that was like the only light that you could see. So being in my perspective, you're standing here, you're looking in a truck with its lights blaring at you. You can only see at the rim of the light right there. You can't see anything beyond that. So he told me, he was just like, if there's skinwalker relics, if there's skinwalker stuff in here, Yanagloshi stuff, they might want to come and reclaim it. They might not want all the evil prayers and everything that was said and done to be released or get rid of in this area. So he said, be ready just in case something comes running at you. And you would only have, like, it was probably from me, I would have to say about like 10 feet away from me. You would only have that quick amount of seconds to be able to react if something came running at you. So me being one of my first times going out there against Yanagloshis, I was nervous. I was I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of scared. So as they make their way to the second chest that was right there, they opened it up, and you hear a creak kind of open it up. It was really old rusty hinges. And when they opened it, you heard a woman scream. And there was no women in our party at that night. It was just the 2 homeowners, and normally the men folk kind of go out and handle the evil and darkness that's out there. So that gave me instant chills when I heard a woman scream. So how my brother told me, there was 4 sacred stones inside of there, as well as a picture of a woman, kind of like a Polaroid picture of a woman in there. Now, to this day, we don't really know who it was. We did give it to the authorities, and it wasn't on a missing persons report or anything like that. We asked the family and the relatives, and they said they didn't know who that was. So to this day, we don't really know who that was, but we did say a prayer for whoever it was. If it was kind of a captured lost spirit, lost soul inside of that chest that was right there, we made sure that she went on to a good place. But after that, my brother said this is the last chest that's right here at the bottom. And when they opened that up, you could feel that darkness shoot out of that shack right there. And already, you know, shaken up by the female scream, you know, you can feel that evil energy kind of come out. And inside of the chest was Skinwalker regalia. So there was the skins inside, there was the antlers that were inside, the weapons and washte that this individual would use when he would go out and skinwalk and everything. My brother brought those out, and he showed me the antlers, and he pointed out a particular thing. On those antlers, there was 4 blood drops on the antlers. And for the Anagloshis, they say for every kill that you have, you put a blood drop on your antlers like that. So this person had taken 4 lives in his time on this earth. So from that point on, you know, they gather up the rocks and the stones and the pictures and the regalia. They put the little items inside of a leather pouch that they have, and we took it back to the homestead, and we started a fire. And so my brother said, you know, this is going to be a little ceremony right here that's going to, in a sense, release the spirit of this buck back to whoever killed it in the wrong way. Because in a sense, when you kill an animal, when you go and hunt and you eat it, there's a little honoring prayer, a little honoring ceremony you do to thank the spirit for its, you know, its sacrifice to be able to feed the family. But the Skinwalker and Yanagloshis do the opposite of that. So this spirit had a lot of angst toward its killer and everything. With that, my brother said, when we do this ceremony, these beings that are around, they might want to come and stop us because they know what ceremony we're going to be doing. While we were getting the fire set up, I remember I was chopping wood, I was getting it all ready, and the sun was, mind you, the sun was already down, it was dark, and you start hearing dog whistles. And dog whistles you hear like psss, and the dogs would start barking because they sense those evil Yanagloshis around. Once they did those dog whistles, the dogs shut up. They didn't say anything, they didn't bark or nothing, and that's how they can get inside of your home. That's when we knew we were on edge. And nearby that homestead was a canyon or a cliff face that was right there. So on that canyon walls, on the right, if you were to go to down the right path, it'll teach you the way on how to become a good medicine man. But if you take the left, it'll teach you how the evil ways on how to be an evil person in a sense. So right in their backyard, they kind of had the training grounds for a lot of these beings. We started the ceremony, and my brother warned me. He's just like, I'm gonna be singing these songs, and I want you to watch my back, because I can't stop. Once the ceremony starts, I can't stop to be able to make sure the ceremony goes good. So if anything comes running at me, you need to handle business and do what you need to do. I said, okay. He started the ceremony, and they had a solar generator at their house, which was about, the house and the shack itself would have to be like 500 yards, I would have to say, away from it. So they had solar on their home, so they had a porch light. So the porch light was shining down on the home, and you could see the rim of the edge of the light around the home. And while he started singing, when he started doing his ceremony, I saw what looked like to be a figure, a silhouette of somebody walking at the edge of the light, kind of hunched over like this and just walking and just looking at us. I saw one, and another one showed up on this other side over here. I got really nervous, but as my brother, this was starting to be the end of the ceremony when more of them started showing up right there. But as my brother was about to finish the ceremony, they all ran. They ran back toward the cliff face where they were, and there was a huge gust of wind. It was a calm night like this. A huge gust of wind comes when he finishes the ceremony, almost blows out the whole fire. And that's when my brother said that's when that buck went straight for where those skinwalkers were. And over at the cliff face that was about a good mile or two away, you hear a scream, a monstrous scream out there. So I guess you can say the buck got its revenge for the evils that was done against him. So that was one of my most intense, I would have to say lightly, encounters I had with the Yanagloshi.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. Holy shit.
14 years old too.
Yeah.
That was nuts.
Well, guess we gotta have you tell another story, man, since you got multiple, because that's wild. Who do you think was the person who had transformed?
The person that was in the shack?
Yeah.
You don't mind putting this, if you don't put, okay.
Yeah.
It was actually, this one, so whenever we went against these Yanagloshis or Skinwalkers and everything, it happened in our earlier years in our prime. I'm telling a story. Our earlier years in our prime. So this one was a lot more recent because, you know, when you kind of get old up there in age, you know, when you get to your 20s and all that stuff, you're kind of considered old when it comes to that point. So we were actually up in our homeland in Black Mesa, and this was just a normal family gathering that we were having up there. And, you know, our whole family was there. We were building a whole one together and everything. So at this point, you know, they only have like a 1-bedroom home up there. So all my family were there, so they were staying inside. So I was just like, you know what? It's a beautiful night. You see the stars and everything, you know. I'll just sleep in a cot on the bed of a truck. I was like, okay, cool. My uncle slept inside of the truck, inside of the dash and everything, or in the cabin. And so as I was sleeping, you know, it was a beautiful night, nice and cool and everything. So as I'm sleeping, the night goes on, and I notice some noises kind of coming around me, which was kind of weird because we have deer, we have elk, and we have wild horses up there and cattle too. So I started hearing some crunches in the middle of the night. I would have to imagine it was around like 2, 3, 4 o'clock. It was before the sun was actually started to show in the morning. So it was still really dark outside. So I heard this, and I was just like, naturally I kind of just like wake up just a little bit. And right at that point was when I started to feel darkness kind of come in. And if you can imagine the feeling of evil and darkness, it's a weird buzzing sensation. It's a weird heat feeling that you feel. And like I said, it was a cool night, so I was just like, why am I feeling warm toward my back? I was laying on my side, and toward my back on the bed of the truck, I started feeling that. So that's when I woke up. My instincts kind of woke me up, and I was just like, I need to check out what this is. But as I got up, I couldn't move. I was like, F***. So when I tried, whenever I'm out there, I sleep with my weapons or my sword that I have. And I tried reaching for my sword, but I couldn't move my body. And I could hear footsteps kind of come up close to the truck. And I was just like, this isn't my family. This isn't my, you know, anyone good that I can recognize. So I tried reaching for my sword, and I started to panic as the footsteps kind of started getting closer. And everything I had in my body to start moving my arm out of desperation of my life, honestly. You know, I reach for my sword and I grab it. And once I grabbed it, it seemed like that paralysis, that paralyzing effect that was on me went off. And I grabbed my sword and I quickly turned, and I saw something dark start bolting toward the tree line and everything. But right before I grabbed my sword, I kind of turned my head like that, and I could see what looked like somebody slowly reaching and had his hand over my head, and he was putting. My camera just died. Oh,
hold that thought.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Do you need a battery?
It just went from full battery to 0.
What the heck?
I just changed it out in the car. Excuse me.
We need to run and get it. You might need a light too.
Yeah, here. I'll just go run and grab it.
A light.
Gotta be careful, yeah.
I'll look for snakes.
All right, man. Ran all the way back to the car. You can see it's noticeably darker now that we started filming.
Hell yeah.
All right, you were in the middle of talking about it coming up to you in the truck bed.
Yeah. So right now we're in the time of the spirit realm right now, when the spirits are walking around. So if you see somebody behind me, please let me know.
Will do.
So Yeah, so as I started reaching for my sword, and I turned around, I saw this hand kind of over me like this, and he was putting something on my head, on my face. So when I grabbed my sword, he turned and ran. So as he ran, I got up and I started banging on the truck for my uncle to wake up. So my uncle woke up, and I was like, Yanagloshi, Yanagloshi. He got up, and we started looking around and everything, and he was already long gone. But then like he got his flashlight, he looked on me and everything, and he saw a white powder on my face, and that was that washte, the bone powder. So that's one of those things that night it was a family occasion. You know, we didn't go out there for ceremony. You know, I wasn't really expecting it for something like that to kind of come about. So normally when that happens, you go out to face these things, you put ash on, you put these sacred things on. So I was just a normal time, you know, just going to sleep at my family occasion. So I was ill prepared at that time, but now I know, you know, just be careful when you sleep out there in the middle of the night. So that's something that, you know, we had to do a ceremony for me to make sure that I didn't inhale or get sick or from the curse and everything like that. So I always say, when you're on the reservation, be careful sleeping out in a tent or just out in the open in the middle of the night. Yeah, it may be beautiful, but you also have to understand that there's things that run around in the middle of the night, even out here too. So I always gotta say, be careful out there, everybody.
That's crazy. That's wild, dude. Any other experiences?
So the eeriest beings I would have to say that I've encountered and learned about are beings in English called soul eaters. Now, in the spirit world, you know, you have these beings that were made from the Creator that roam around lands like this, who make sure that the spirit world doesn't get too cluttered. Now, when I talk about this is when people go getting of old age, you know, they meet their time of when they pass away. It's more so scheduled. You know, your family members that are up in the next world, you know, so they say when you get up there in age and you're ready to pass on into the next world, you make your journey. They say a lot of family members, they start seeing old people that have passed on long ago. They say, you know, I see my mom, I see my dad, or I see my brother, somebody who already had passed on. And a lot of people kind of say like, oh, they're just getting old, they're deteriorating, or oh, they're kind of losing their mind. But that's not the case. When it comes to that, they're starting to have one foot in the spirit world and one foot in ours. So when they do pass on, those family members take them on their journey into the next world, and whatever religion that you follow, most of them that I've encountered, they always talk about a white light or something of that nature, to where you're kind of going a journey to the spirit world and you go on from there. Now, there are times when you meet your end at an unforeseen time, and these bugs really like me. They say when you meet your fate, you meet your end at an unforeseen time. A lot of times the family members and the spirits that are out there don't know that you have met your end, so they're not there to help guide you on your journey into the next world. Say you get murdered, say you get in a car crash and you die unexpectedly. You'll wake up. Well, one analogy I like to make is that movie Ghost with I believe it's Patrick Swayze, and he met his end, and he gets up, he looks around, he's a spirit, but then he sees his body right there. And there are these dark shadows, these dark beings that kind of came out of the ground and started chasing him around. And those, in a sense, are what we call soul eaters. Now, these beings, they come around and they kind of clean up a lot of the spirits that are lost, because, in a sense, if you're a wandering spirit, you could be used for evil. You can have your soul captured and taken into the dark markets and sold, or all these horrid things, and be used for so many dark, evil ways. So he created those to kind of make sure that that doesn't happen, to make sure that evil doesn't have their way with you. And so when it comes to that, these beings come in all shapes and sizes. And this one being that I met in particular was a soul eater, and to me, it creeped me the hell out, because it still gives me nightmares to this day. because we were at a canyon, and it was a very, very spiritual night, to where spiritual beings learned how to manifest. As a spiritual site, spiritual evening, all these things kind of lined up to where these spirits could manifest in during my trainings. And I remember seeing this being kind of come out of the darkness, come out of the shadows. And if you could picture a lion, but he had a flat face, but his whole entire body was made of bone. But not only that, the lion's mane was made out of human arms, human legs, and his whole body was made out of human body parts and everything. So it had a really kind of horrible smell to him. Freaked me the hell out, but it's one of those things that we chased it off, because we were doing a ceremony for somebody who had recently passed away in an untimely death. So we had to go out and look for their spirit and everything. But those beings, they can sniff when a spirit is kind of wandering and lost like that. So we had to chase those beings off, and we ended up finding that person and sending them on their way. So that's one of the things. It's just like they all comes in all shapes and sizes. And the part that's freaky is normally people would have guardian spirits, family members that come down and look after them. Guardian angels, in a relative term, would come down and look after the person, protect them against evil beings throughout their life. So in cases like that, you know, they'll be the ones that kind of take them on their journey and everything. But for those that, you know, don't have those things, don't have those protections, those family members, it's scary, because that can happen. So that's where you get a lot of these hauntings as well, is because when a spirit would die an untimely death, they would freak out and start running when they see a soul eater coming their way, and they would run into the nearest home. They would run into the nearest house that's there. So when they do that, they notice that the soul eater can't come inside the home, and they look on the wall, they see a cross on their doorway, or they see a bow and arrow, they see arrowheads, or they see some type of protection on their home that a soul eater cannot come in there. And so that spirit will be like, okay, I'm just gonna hang out here in this house. You know, I'm gonna mess around with these people, just try to get their attention, see if I can get some help. That's where you have like doors opening and closing, see shadows, start seeing people in your home. So that's a lot of times what we come to find out is lost spirits, lost souls end up in these homes, and that's where you get a normal haunting most of the time. So it's just people that haven't made their final journey, didn't have those spirits there to help them on their next step. So that's where, you know, there lost spirits like that, you know, whenever you go to these locations, you always have to be mindful of that, you know, because this is like, there could be a spirit calling for help, but there's also a darker, evil, demonic being that's holding them there. I guess you can say like the Conjuring, when Valak had that old man in that home, you know, a similar case just like that, to where, you know, you would think that the old man is a bad person that's creeping out and freaking out these people, but it's actually a spirit that's calling out for help. So always be mindful of that. Always be, you know, think about the certain scenarios that you could be dealing with in your home. So that's just soul eaters are, yeah, something I typically don't like to run into.
Yeah, I don't think I would either, man. What do you think is your craziest paranormal experience? Like, what was something that was just so profound that it stuck with you?
God, I have a list.
Right.
You ever investigate the Washoe Club?
Yeah, yeah, we did.
Would have to be there. So we went up there for an investigation to go check out the Washoe Club, and this was during our times of investigating and everything. We had a late member who passed away a couple years ago. His name was Pataya, who was there at the time as well. He had type 1 diabetes, but dude was the strongest guy out there. But we noticed that when we would go to these locations that the darker beings would kind of play and affect him and his diabetes that he had in his body. While we were there, we were up on, I believe, the second floor in the doll room, if you remember that room.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in that room, and this is by far, Washoe Club was one of the craziest places that we've been to that had the most SB7 communication that we've had, or at least the most violent, I would have to say. So while we were there, he started getting affected. He started feeling kind of sick. So he asked if he can go outside and just chill by the truck, and we're just like, you have to ask the spirit if you can leave. And out of the doll, it was talking. It was just like, no, you can't go. And we're just like, he said you can't go. He's like, oh, I need to go. And then the doll got upset, and she was just like, I said stay. And he was just like, I can't stay. So as he was leaving, caught on the SB7, it said cut his throat. And as he was walking down those steps, he got a huge pain in his stomach, and we almost had to carry him out and everything. And during that investigation, he ended up getting, he rested outside, but he was just like, screw that, you know, I'm not gonna let anything affect me in that way. He came back in like the badass he was, and we went up to the red room, and he sat down, and that's when he passed out. He was unfortunately, he started going under possession. And so, but we were instructed by our spiritual mentors to let it happen. Normally when stuff like that happens, our crew goes to stop it, but we were tasked, as this was going to be training for us. We had to learn how to overcome the darkness and come out of it our own. So it was hard to watch him go through that, but he had to learn how to come out of it himself. And it got to the point to where we had to step in and intervene. When we were doing performing indigenous exorcism that my brother knows, crazy things started happening. So there was a door that's in there, and my brother said to open it, let the air come through. So we opened the door, and as he was doing the ceremony, you see that door go and slam, and it says, you're not going anywhere. So he ended up doing the ceremony. We got him back up and got him back to his normal self afterwards. But just, it felt like a whirlwind of energy coming in from the floor, out, so many different things all at the same time. And just to kind of be there and watch and everything, you would hear, you know, that being come through the SB7 talking about our family and real names. That gave him visions of his family too, of dark things that it would do if he took that home. So that's one of those things we were taught to learn how to break those connections, make those offerings at the end of the investigations to make sure nothing follows you home.
Damn.
Yeah.
I feel every time you finish telling a story, we're like, damn. Every single time.
I actually have one more, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So, have you been to the Gila County Jail?
No.
Which is in Globe?
Uh-uh.
That place right there was one of the first times that we actually met an evil being that was more on the hellish scale, more of a demonish kind of being. And that one was another one that we had an encounter that was really great. SB7 experiences and responses inside of there. So much so, when we got to the third floor of the jail, you know, I myself kind of went under a brief possession, to where like I was standing there and I kind of just spaced out, and my mind kind of just went somewhere else. And we were asking questions on the spirit box, and whenever we go into these investigations, we don't announce that we're medicinal people. We don't announce that who we are in our background as far as for helping spirits. So that kind of gauges to the power, I guess you could say, the power level of these beings that are inside of these places. And that's why we never really use our real names. So my name that I would use is Sean Glenn, Warrior of the Shadows. So if the being was able to find out our real names, who we are, where we come from and everything, that's when you know it's like, okay, we're dealing with somebody who's pretty skillful in their trade. So we were there, and as I was kind of spacing out and everything, the SB7 spirit box came through my voice through the SB7, says, use that ghost ceremony. And that right there it was also at that same time our RIA light was really flickering and malfunctioning at that time. And like I kind of snapped out of it, and I was just like, everyone was like, did you say that? I was like, say what? And then they're like, use that ghost ceremony. I was like, no. You look at the footage, my mouth didn't move or nothing like that. So we were walking around, there's these spirits that were calling out to us and like, do you need help from this being that's here? And there's a being that's there called the Mad Hatter. And we would ask these spirits that are there, we're just like, are you stuck here? And it's just like, yes, we're stuck. And it's like, why haven't you moved on? And they would say, God has forsaken us. This demon put it in their mind that there's no hope. There's no, they can't get out or anything like that. And there's some places in this world that you are even cut off from God and the Creator, to where even the angels and those guys can't hear your prayers. Kind of circling back to the lost spirit thing, if you're in a home and all that other stuff and you're a lost spirit, normally you can pray to the Creator and they can come and help you. But there's some times when you get stolen by these evil beings, they'll take you at certain places to where even your prayers can't be reached out. It's so dark, so evil that they can't hear your prayers. You're just completely cut off from the spiritual world. So that's where you kind of go more into the darker things of spiritual slave trade. Kind of like how we have human trafficking, there's the same thing in the spiritual world too. Spirits and souls are used as currency on that side of the spectrum. So this is one of those things to where you would have spirits call out for help, and you would have mediums and everything that would go, and I kind of don't really know what they're doing. They would go in there and be like, hey, you're set free, you can go to God now. But, you know, they would call upon a light for the spirits to go, but those spirits would be chained to the floor, and they would try to reach it, but that demon had them in there.
Look, another battery.
That's really strange.
Another battery.
See, now
I brought another one too, just in case. But that was full too.
So when it comes to the spiritual world, a lot of people think it's kind of black and white when it comes to just spirits, demons, and angels. There's so many different factions of spiritual beings from other dimensions and from our own and infinitely beyond too. So it's elaborate. You have these cities of spirits. You have, you know, all these beings that have certain tasks on this world and everything. So that's why whenever we would go investigate, we would try to meet these new beings to try to give new stories of the beings that you interact with. So if you go to the places like this, you know, there's a mountain that's right here. There's guardian spirits that are here. Oh, you have nature spirits, you have desert spirits, you have night spirits that are out right now here too. So you have beings that live in the earth, you have beings that live in the sky, beings of the springtime, the winter time, that's all here. So you have to learn how to deduce those things, but there's also third-party, non-natural beings that come around. You have soul eaters, you have phantoms, you have all these other beings of hell, beings of good. You know, you have tribal spirits that are here and all their spirits that they have as well. And then you also have a city that's right here too with all these different nationalities. So they have their spirits that are here too as well. And they come here to these natural spots and locations of energy where they can meet, mingle. They have spiritual markets. They have all these different things where they can trade and do all these so many elaborate things. And it's a beautiful world. But on the darker side too, like I was mentioning the lost spirits and everything, sometimes soul collectors, soul merchants come and take those beings, and they say that they can grab you and put you inside of a pouch with all these other souls. They go to those dark markets and everything. They can sell you to get all these items that they need for whatever things that they're doing. So this location was one of those spots of transferring all these spiritual beings. They would go from this place to the next, to the next, to the next. And so while we were there, we ran a ceremony to where we ended up finding out that this being, his name was Darkus. And what come to find out in our research was he was one of the spiritual captains of a dark lord in hell called Zagan, which was like, I think he's considered the king of hell or something. So he was one of his commanders who was looking over a globe and everything, which has a lot of copper mines. And so he said he's said to be the leader of copper, gold, and greed. So over there in Globe, that's where a lot of the copper mines are. And so he was overlooking that area. So the Globe Gila County Jail was one of those spots to where it's already a jail. So you just put the spirits inside the cell and lock them up, get them ready for transfer. So we ran a ceremony to where we pushed Darkus back. We kind of held him against the wall and everything while my brother went room to room, gathered up all the lost souls, took them outside, called upon the spirits, the light, and everything to take them on their next journey. But that's something that, you know, when you go to these locations, you know, it's not as easy as just saying, you know, Lord, Creator, come down and take these spirits away. Because sometimes there's an evil being that's holding them there. So you have to know how to push that evil being back to be able to release those spirits to where they need to be with their families in the next world.
Once again, damn. So I guess I just have like one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of, like, going back to the very beginning with skinwalkers, like any stories of people who have actually been killed or, like, you know, hurt by skinwalkers?
And like documented?
Not necessarily documented, but
yeah.
Even oral history.
Yeah. There are a lot of people, actually, a lot of medicinal people. Like how I said, On the reservations and for indigenous people too, missing persons reports are very, very high wherever you come from, especially in the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation is the biggest reservation on the North American continent itself. So out there, you know, somebody can go missing and no one's ever going to find them. So that's where you would have a lot of missing persons reports, to where sometimes their sacrifice ends up being a missing persons report. Sometimes it's not confirmed, but even Navajo Nation police out there, they have a special task force out there that's specialized to deal with more so of the supernatural things that happen on the reservation. So they're out there, they look for Bigfoot, they look for Skinwalker and all that stuff. Whenever people say, hey, they call the police, they have somebody running on their roof and everything, they'll send out that task force that goes out there to look for those things. So yeah, there have been people, unfortunately, who do die from Yanagloshi encounters.
And then I guess, what would you like to dispel, like rumor wise, about like skinwalkers and kind of like all the misinformation that's out there? Because I've seen some videos that describe things very differently than what you are telling us right now.
First off, skinwalkers and wendigos are totally different. That's one of the biggest things I always see in my comment section and everything. And you know, like how I said, if you're not in the general region of the Navajo Nation, you're probably not dealing with a skinwalker. There's been reports in Utah, Colorado. Our 4 Sacred Mountains go from Flagstaff, 1 in Flagstaff, 2 in Colorado, and 1 in New Mexico. So those are the borders of the Navajo Nation itself. So in the general region, you know, you'll run into skinwalkers and everything, but then also kind of down here too with the tribes that kind of mix with the Navajo as well. You know, you might run into Yanagloshis or skinwalkers, but if you live on the East Coast, Canada, Mexico, you know, you're probably not dealing with the skinwalker per se. There's a lot of similar beings that are out there, you know. A lot of people from Mexico tell me that there's a being down there called a Nahualis that's very, very similar. And so that's one thing that I love, is to be able to communicate with these people from different tribes, different races, different religions, and tell their stories of beings where they come from. So like I said, do your research in your local area. You know, either a tribe or race or religion already has beings that's right there. It's very similar, but you know, there's always differences. So that's why I encourage people to go deeper into, you know, it's a shapeshifter, yeah, but we're also human, but then there's also races, there's also religions, and you narrow it down to your family, and then who you are as an individual. You're unique. The same thing with the spiritual world. They have blends and all these other different things that you have to really deduce to be able to know how to communicate with them right. When you go investigate, you know, you deal with the soul eater. You can't just go up to him and be like, hey, how's it going? You know, there's a certain way you approach it. That's why in our investigations we had such unique interactions with these beings, because each being that you interact with, you have to go about it in a specific way to nurture who they are as an individual. So that's one thing, is just like, just do your research and just know there's more to the spiritual world out there, and just have fun, but be safe out there, everyone.
Awesome, man. Well, after those spooky stories, we got to walk back through the pitch black darkness over there, right towards the coyotes or dogs or whatever the hell. Awesome, man.
Hello!